Hello everyone, I'm Glad again, and I'm making free videos that teach quality engineering step by step so that you can build real skills without paying expensive courses. So now we've covered leadership, facilitation, and communication. All the internal machinery of how quality work actually gets done inside an organization. Today we round outward to the reason any of the machinery exists at all, the customer. So here's the roadmap. First, we'll look at the why customers, both internal and external, have to stay in constant contact with the organization and what Collins and Porras research on truly enduring companies tell us how that sustained over decades. Second, we'll dig into the customer needs and wants, including the generally sharp quote about combating the organization myoma myopia. Third, we'll get practical measuring customer satisfaction, including healthy dose of skepticism about what satisfaction cards at, let's say, for hotels and restaurants can tell you. Fourth is we'll cover the Gale and Woods, 7 tools of customer value analysis and the specific characteristic customers actually value in product versus services. Fifth is the difference between the reactive and planned customer-driven quality and how that connects to a strategic quality planning and the Baldrige Award. And finally, a list of 10 characteristics that define a customer-focused company. So let's start with the broadest possible framing before we get into specific tools. So this topic opens by reminding us that the customers can be found both internally and externally to the organization. And you must find some way of communicating with your customers on a regular basis, not just as a one-time event, but as an ongoing discipline. To back this up, this topic draws Collins and Porras' well-known research from 1997 into what they call visionary companies, the best of the best in their respective industries. So their finding, quoted directly on the screen, is that these companies develop systems that transcends dependence on any single leader or great idea in order to build an enduring great human institution that lasted and will last for decades. So that's generally important distinction. It's not about having 1 billion founder or 1 billion product. It's about building a system that robust enough to outlive any single person or idea. And here's an honest, a ground detail worth including. Many of these visionaries companies stumbled along the way. They were not perfect, but they somehow found a way to come back by continuing to provide the customer or client products or services that are actually wanted or needed. So the secret is, as this topic says, like it seems to be refreshingly simple to state. If hard to execute, try a lot of things that keep works. Stop what does not and continually check back with the customer to see if anything has changed. So then start the process over again. So if that cycle sounds familiar, it should be like plan, do, study, and act cycle. So which we'll see reference again later in the quality material. So the core message here is before we further is staying connected with the customer is not the project with an end date. It's a permanent cyclical discipline. And this section makes a genuinely direct case for keeping the customer at the center. So this topic organizationally objective is stated very simple. Ensure that the customer want and need your product or services is not assume we don't assume it. So actually we ensure it. So the Perry quote on the screen is worth sitting and staying in direct face-to-face contact with customers in their world is the surest way to combat organizational myopia. So that phrase, organizational myopia, is describing a very specific and common failure. A system gets built, and the people inside that system that start to expect customer to conform to the way things are already done by the supplier. So rather than the system adapting to the customer. This topic is also blunt that this happens everywhere, from the corner grocery to the store to the retail outlets, from schools, like for manufacturing organization. So it's not a rare situation. So it's a default tendency any organization that can drift into. So there's a genuinely sharp, almost self-depreciating line in the text worth calling out directly because it names the symptoms so precisely. And how often have you seen cartoons built around the theme of if it wasn't for the unrealistic customers, this would be a great place to work. So, so that joke only lands because it is recognizable. It is real attitude that quietly develops inside organizations that have a lost sight of why they exist. So which leads to a quality engineer, actual job here, like stated directly. Help the organization see that the customers are the reason for its existence versus the other way around. So that's a deceptively simple sentence, but it's really entire philosophical foundation for everything else in this topic. Every survey, every value analysis tool, every customer focused characteristic will cover in the next frame. So let's get practical about measuring customer satisfaction, about the real limitation of the common tools. Because this topic is refreshingly skeptical here rather than just commenting surveys like uncritically. So Hayes in 2008 provides details on effective methods to measure customer satisfaction and loyalty through surveys or questionnaires. And these methods had now include online surveys as well. But particular attention should be paid to potential measurement error in these types of surveys because response rates tend to be low, and a low response creates a real risk that the people who did not respond are not representative of your full customer base. So, regardless of the specific method, the actual goal should be receive measurements that accurately represent customer attitudes. So, not just collect a large volume of responses, but this topic pushes further than that. So, this work should go beyond just collecting a sample information surveys, focus group meetings, planned visits, and so on. So everyone has seen the customer survey cards at hotels and restaurants asking about satisfaction. But here's the question that this topic asks directly. What is the validity of such an effort, given issues like response rate and the non-randomness of who actually responds? To categorize just how shallow this kind of data really is, like this chapter also borrows the Kirkpatrick's four stages model for evaluating training events, which we'll cover in the more detail in the chapter 2. It applies it here like this kind of data gathering effort would be categorized as reaction or level 1 evaluation, like the shallowest tier of the model. Like some people even call this like the smiley sheets, and the chapter notes that it is deliberately pejorative term referencing the halo effect, which result from the glow of the moment of the event, or simply because the participants wants the researcher to feel good rather than giving a considered honest assessment. So here's the real question the chapter says a quality engineer should actually be asking. Instead of just tallying smiley faces ratings, like what do my customers think after using product or service for some period of time in actual real world settings? And what are they are telling other people about my organizations? So that's the fundamental, deeper, more durable measure of satisfaction than a commenting card filled out in a glow of a single moment. So Gale and Wood in 1994 described 7 specific tools of customer value analysis, and using them in their words will enable an organization to navigate strategically even in confusing times. So let's walk through all these 7, their precise definition from the text. One, the market perceived quality profile, defined as an indicator of how well you're performing overall for the customers in your target market. Two, the market perceived price profile, a weighted indicator of how customers perceive different competitors on a given price attributes. Three is the customer value map. A map reveals a sizable cluster of business units receiving premium prices that are not fully supported by superior perceived quality. So this one is worth sitting with because it's essentially a tool for catching an organization overcharging relative to what customers actually perceive as quality. A genuinely risky, unsustainable position to be in. Four is the won and loss analysis, simply an analysis of the factors that would lost a particular sale, like letting you learn directly both from your successes and your failures. Five is the head-to-head area of chart of customer value. So it's a chart customer value displaying specifically where you do well and where you do worse and against a single name competitor rather than a market broadly. Six is the key events timeline, a chronological list of the events that change the market perception of performance on each quality attribute. So track for both yours and your competitors offering. So, and 7 is what and who metrics. So, a method tracking who is actually responsible for the actions that will make success in the customer value possible, strategically insight back to the real accountability. So taken together, these seven tools move well beyond a single satisfaction score. So they give the organization a genuinely multi-dimensional view of where it stands and why and who needs to act on it. Okay, so numerous factors represent value to different customers under a variety of situations. And in table 1.5 in the book, in the chapter lays this out of as two parallel lists, one for the product characteristics, one for the service characteristics, which is worth walking through carefully because the two lists are genuinely different in character. On the product side, performance, reasonable price, durability, and safety, these are the tangible, almost engineering flavored attributes people expect from a physical product. Then, serviceability, ease and flexibility of use, simplicity of design and aesthetics, and ease of disposal. So these round out the product list with attributes about the full life cycle of owning, eventually discarding the thing. So not just using it. On the service side, the list shifts almost entirely toward interpersonal and relational qualities, responsiveness, reliability, competence, and access. How quickly, consistently, and capably you can actually reach and be served by the provider. Then, courteously and communication, specifically called out as including sensitivity and genuine interest of concern. So, not just information transfer. Then credibility and image. So confidentiality and security, understanding the customer, accuracy and completeness, and timeliness. The genuine important lesson from these two lists side by side: value is not one universal checklist. What a customer cares about shifts substantially depending on whether they're evaluating a tangible product or an intangible service experience. So, an organization that only measures product style attributes like durability and price, when it's actually delivering a service, is very likely missing the dimension its customers actually care about most. So things like courtesy, communication, and whether they feel genuinely understood. A growing number of approaches focus on greater understanding of and interaction with uh, customers, and this topic identifies two broad types of customer-driven quality: the reactive and the planned. So both are described as proving successful in improving quality, but this topic is carefully to note, citing the Foster 1998, that neither one guarantees customer satisfactions outright. A reactive customer-driven quality, abbreviated as RCDQ, responds to the customer requirement after the fact. You find out what customers want or don't want once they already told you, often through a complaint or a lost sale. Planned customer-driven quality, in contrast, is anticipatory and proactive. It assesses customer need and seeks methods for satisfying those needs before the fact, ideally getting ahead of the need before the customer has fully articulated it. So here's a key strategic insight this topic draws out. So any organization wanting to meet a customer expectation is pursuing a moving target. A customer expectations are not static, they shift constantly. And because of the constant movement, their active nature of the RCDQ approaches will cause the supplier to fall behind the moving target. So this is not a minor disadvantage. So it is a structural built-in lag, and if you only ever respond after customers have already told you what they want, you're perpetually a step behind where their expectations have already moved to by the time you respond. So that's precisely why customer-driven quality, despite requiring more upfront investment and genuine anticipation. So it is positioned as the stronger long-term strategy, which leads to directly into how organization operationalize the that anticipatory planning. So how do you actually operationalize planned anticipatory customer-driven quality rather than just reacting after the fact? So planned customer-driven quality is the best accomplished using some form of strategic quality planning, the abbreviated SQP. But this topic includes an important clarification here. This is not necessarily the same as the general strategic planning process we covered back what we discussed the QMS topic. SQP is specifically quality-focused strategic planning. So not strategic planning in the broadest business sense. So there's a genuinely interesting piece of institutional history included here, and it's worth understanding why it happened, not just that it happened. So the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award actually changed the name of its SQP category to its simply strategic planning. So why make that change? So to counter that sense, some quality professional had to narrow a focus on company competitiveness in the marketplace. So unpack that reasoning for a moment. If you frame quality planning specifically as SQP, tied tightly to the word quality, there's a risk that quality professionals starting treating it as a competitiveness exercise. Essentially, how do we out quality our competitors? Rather than a broader planning discipline that considers the full range of stakeholders, systems, and outcomes we covered in the QMS material, including employees, suppliers, and the community, not just market positioning. So by broadening the name back to just strategic planning, Baldry signaled that quality consideration should be fully integrated into organization overall strategy rather than treated as a competitiveness focused side category that the quality professionals own in isolation from everyone else's strategic thinking. So this topic closes its practical guidance with a specific guidance. The top 10 key characteristic of a customer focused companies. I'm apologized for the number 10. So let's go all of them because each one is distinctly organizationally capable, not just a slogan. So one is the total consumer experience, the ability to look at the customer from every angle of how organization products and service are actually experienced in the real world. So looking for every possible point of contact to collect field information. Two is product hits. So using the Kano model specifically to continually delight the customer with the new products and services, some of which the customer may not even have wanted. Three is the consumer loyalty, building sustained momentum over time to the point where the customer will use only your product or service, even waiting. So if necessary, to get the real thing. So four is retailing and distribution, creating a genuine win-win for your organization, your distributors, and your customers. So this topic makes a point of noting your distribution system is a customer in its own right, not just a pipe to the end customer. Five is the brand process, the creation of recognized products or services that are actively sought after the marketplace. Six is the logistics, providing just-in-time delivery of exactly what needed or wanted at the actual point usage. Seven is built to demand, creating a lean process capable of rapid changeovers so customers get what they want when they want it on just-in-time basis. And critically, this has to be built in the entire system from suppliers through a production and all the way to ultimate customers. So not just a final assembly step. So eight is a consumer knowledge system, continuous information gathering about the customer expectation and wants. So feeding directly into the system to surface continual improvement opportunities. So nine is the e-commerce becoming interactive and offering distribution, selling and constantly communication with customers online. And 10 is the growth that is continually improving through faster service, better value, and higher quality that builds a culture that uses creativity and innovation specifically to improve the customer satisfaction over time. So let's bring this chapter together in five closing points. So first is staying connected to the customer is a permanent cycle, so not a one-time project. So Collins and Pora's research into enduring visionary company showed us that the secret is trying things, keeping what works and stop what does not, and continually checking back with the customer in what essentially a plan, do, study, act loop. So there's no finish line where you can stop listening. So second is smiley sheet satisfaction data is generally shallow. So Kirkpatrick's model classifies as hotel and restaurant comment cards as level 1, reaction data distorted by the halo effect of the moment. The real, more durable question is that what customers think after using product or service for a while in a real world settings, and what they're telling other people about your organization. Third is Gale and Wood 7 tools: the quality profile, the price profile, the value map, the one loss analysis, the head-to-head chart, the key events timetable, um, and what who matrix given an organization a generally multidimensional of the customer value rather than boiling everything down to a single satisfaction score. Fourth is planned and proactive quality beats the reactive quality precisely because customer expectations are constantly moving target. A reactive customer driven quality, by definition, always finds out after the fact, which means it structurally falls behind. So, planned customer driven quality, supported by a real strategic quality planning, is built to anticipate rather than just respond. Fifth is customer focus is generally systemic, not just a single department job. The 10 characteristic we covered span for using a Kano model to delight customers, to build lean, just-in-time supply chains, to embracing e-commerce and continuous online communication, a customer-focused company that works together. Because a company can excel at one of these 10 and still lose customers through weakness in one another. So I hope I bring value to this video and you learn a lot. So I'll see you soon with the last topic. Bye bye.